Hey everybody, we are back. We're starting a brand new series, a brand new book series on Thoughts Are Things by Prentice Mulford. In this video, we're going to go over a short introduction and we're going to continue on to chapter 1. After that, each chapter will be its own video, but it will be part of this series, inside my channel, inside my YouTube channel. So a short introduction really fast here is that this book is really special. I mean, for one, it's an old school book. So it was published in 1908. But it was published after Prentice Mulford passed away. So during Prentice Mulford's life, he wrote essays, and he was born in 1834 and he passed away in 1891. So now we're going back to the mid 1800s. So lots of times they didn't really write books back then. They really wrote manuscripts or they wrote essays. Then usually they would turn essays or turn their manuscripts into books. So this is basically what happened here. So all his essays and manuscripts he wrote was turned into a book, Thoughts Are Things, after he passed away. And this is so wonderful. I mean, this is a hard read, but it's phenomenal because what we have to understand is, and we all know with manifesting, law of attraction, law of assumption, these things have been around for thousands of years because it all comes from spiritual and biblical texts. But all this information comes from the mid 1800s. And old school teachers, I think I love because they really dive deep. I mean, really deeper into manifesting, law of attraction, law of assumption, no matter what you want to call it. They really dive deeper, in my opinion, than any of the new school teachers today in 2024. I mean, usually today in 2024, most people just hit the surface. They never dive deep and deep and deep, just because when you're dealing with an old school book, an old school author by Prentice Mulford, they've already been doing it for years. Lots of times this is their life study. So this is somebody that really knows what he's talking about, just like Neville Goddard. This is somebody he spent his whole life, studying and researching and talking about the law of assumption. So this is somebody also that really knows what he's talking about. Just like Thomas Trowbridge, he spent his whole life, studying and researching on the topics of manifesting, on the topic of how to get what you want, how to live a great life. And the list goes on and on and on. But the old school teachers, they spent their whole life researching and studying. So they mastered this information. That's why it's so wonderful to go through these books. Now, with this book, again, I'm reading the book to you. I'm reading the chapter to you. But I'm also putting in my own personal experiences. I'm also explaining things just because we are dealing with Old English. Okay, they are using different terminology than what we use today. So things need to be explained. So I am reading the chapters to you, but I'm pausing here and there, giving my own interpretations of things as far as in 2024, and really help us understand what's really going on and kind of give a different view too, because that's what we have to understand. Like lots of times we could sit back and say, well, Chad, I've heard this stuff hundreds of times, but you're not really getting the results that you really want. So there's something going on. There's something you're missing if you're not really living the life that you want. So that's why I'm giving a different interpretation here. I'm giving my own personal experiences as well, because a light bulb might just pop off for you where you hear it explained in a certain way. Even if you heard it 100 times, you hear it explained in a certain way. You hear one example and you're having an aha moment. You're like, oh, I finally get it. I finally get it to a deeper meaning. And when you finally get it, everything starts working for you in your favor. So that's what I want. That's what I want for myself, of course, but that's what I want for you. So this is why I love old school books. Now, a quick disclaimer here before we get started, before we move on to chapter 1, is remember it's an old school book. It's old school writing. It's old English. So coming with that is there might be terms that are used that there's no ill meaning by that term. It's just terms and words they used way back in the 1800s, early 1900s. I didn't want to change the edition of the book where they go in and they start changing the terminology and they start changing the words. They start almost rewriting it. I like to work out of the original, at least as far as I know, work out of the original book. But just take no offense. Don't come into it like, oh my God, he said this, and you take offense to it. Because remember, we're working out of something that was written in his essays in the mid 1800s. So they've used words that we don't use today, or that could mean something different today. So don't take any ill meaning by it, because there's nothing negative about this. So that's why I just want to point out really, really fast. And then on top of that, some of these chapters they're short chapters. They're about 5 pages, but they're really full. They're full with just wisdom. Old school books don't have any fluff to them. It's just one thing after another, one thing after another. So I am reading the whole thing to you with pieces of my own interpretations and explaining things in a deeper way. It is a rough read, I'll be honest with you, just because of the old school writing. So I'll try my best for you. So other than that, let's dive into chapter 1, Thoughts Are Things by Prentice Mulford, and let's get rocking and rolling. Now, chapter one is called The Material Mind versus a Spiritual Mind. Now, I'm going to explain right off the bat here, is because when he goes through this chapter, he's going to call things material mind. He's going to dive really deep into the material mind and really deep into the spiritual mind. So what he's talking about here, the material mind is our subconscious mind. Or no, our material mind is our conscious mind. Now, our conscious mind is our waking mind. It's our analytical mind. When we're awake during the day, our conscious mind is in control. Now, our spiritual mind is our subconscious mind. Now, our spiritual mind, subconscious mind, this is where our perception comes from. This is where our intuition comes from. This is where our gut feelings come from. They come from our subconscious mind or spiritual mind. So this chapter could be called our conscious mind versus our subconscious mind. But he's using the terms material mind and spiritual mind. Then also I want to point out very quickly is I do like to, especially if you're watching this video, you're not just listening to it, I like to highlight. I will highlight going down through it. Now I have everything highlighted right now because I do find that when I highlight it, it does keep the glare down a little bit. It's easier for me to see. Then it's easier to see in a video as well when I kind of highlight over the words. And I put on my handy dandy glasses here. So let's get rocking and rolling in chapter 1, the material mind versus the spiritual mind. There belongs to every human being a higher self and a lower self, or mind of the spirit, which has been growing for ages, and a self of the body, which is but a thing of yesterday. The higher self is full of prompting idea, suggestion, and aspiration. So the higher self, he's talking about our subconscious mind. Our subconscious mind, this is where all of our ideas, all of our answers come from, all of our inspiration, aspirations come from. So he's really, when you talk about your higher self, he's talking about your spiritual self. Your spiritual self is your subconscious mind. This, it receives of the supreme power. All the power comes from the subconscious mind. All this, the lower or animal self regards as wild and visionary. The higher self argues possibilities and power for us greater than men and women now possess and enjoy. The lower self says we can only live and exist as men and women have lived and existed before us. The higher self craves freedom from the cumberousness, the limitations, the pains, the disabilities of the body. The lower self says that we are born to them, born to ill, born to suffer, and must suffer as have so many before us. Isn't it so true? Okay, let me see what color I have it on. Let me turn it on purple here. Isn't it so true when he says right here, the lower self? Now the lower self can be our conscious mind, because our conscious mind is our analytical mind. Our conscious mind is what basically is what we're doing throughout the whole day. What we're thinking about, if we're thinking positive or negative, this is our conscious mind. So our lower self, isn't it so true? Even back in the 1800s, he's saying our lower self says that we are born to them. Maybe you're born into poverty, and that's what all you know, and you think your lower self thinks you're just stuck in poverty. You can never get out of it. You should just accept it. This is the life that was given to you. You just have to accept it. This is what he's really talking about here, is that your lower self says you were born into it. You were born to ill. You were born in poverty. Maybe you were born with a disease and you think, well, this is my life. This is the life that was given me. You were born to suffer. And you must suffer as have so many before us. Meaning he's talking about generational curses or generational poverty. Like if you were born in poverty, your parents were in poverty, then your grandparents are in poverty, your great great grandparents are in poverty. So you think to yourself, well, I must, this is a life that was handed to me. There's no way out. This is what he's talking about, the lower self. Then he switches it. The higher self wants a standard for right and wrong of its own. The lower self says we must accept a standard made for us by others, by general and long held opinion, belief, and prejudice. To thine own self be true is an oft uttered adage, but to which self, the higher or the lower? You have, in a sense, two minds, the mind of the body and the mind of the spirit. Now, this is where he's really going to dive into our conscious and subconscious mind. And this is so true. It's true back in the 1800s and it's true today. You have, in a sense, two minds, the mind of the body and the mind of the spirit. The spirit is a force and a mystery. Your spiritual mind, your subconscious mind, even today in 2024, is a force and it's still a mystery. People really don't know how the subconscious mind really works. I mean, to a great, great detail. All we know or may ever know of it, that it exists and is ever working and producing all results in physical things, seen in physical sense, and many more not so seen. What is seen of any object, a tree, an animal, a stone, a man, is only a part of that tree, animal, stone, or man. There is a force which for a time binds such objects together in the form you see them. The force is always acting on them to greater or lesser degree. It builds up the flower to its fullest maturity. Its cessation to act on the flower or the tree causes what we call decay. It is constantly changing the shape of all forms of what we call organized matter. An animal, a plant, a human being are not in physical shape this month or this year, what they will be next month or next year. This ever-acting, ever-varying force which lies behind and, in a sense, creates all forms of matter we call spirit. Now, this is where he's going into the spiritual mind. This is where he's going on. Remember, when he talked about spirit, when he's talking about the spiritual mind, he means your subconscious mind. To see, reason, and judge of life and things in the knowledge of this force makes what is termed the spiritual mind. Now think about this for a second. To see, reason, and judge of life and things and the knowledge of this force makes is what is termed the spiritual mind. We have through knowledge that wonderful power of using or directing this force. When we recognize it and we know that it exists so as to bring us health, happiness, and eternal peace of mind, composed as we are of this force, we are ever attracting more of it to us and making a part of our being. With more of this force must come more and more knowledge. At first, in our physical existences, we allow it to work blindly. Then we are in the ignorance of that condition known as the material mind. Now, this is so true today. And what he's talking about is, when I highlight it here in purple, is that, listen to this, with the more of this force must come more and more knowledge. Okay, the more we're operating with a spiritual mind, the more we're operating with our subconscious mind, he's saying we have to link, okay, we're using our subconscious mind, but at the same time, there has to be more and more knowledge. We have to understand this power, because we have this great power, but we're not in control of the power. Okay, this is what's really going on today. You know, we have this great power, but we don't know how to control it. And when we don't know how to control it, this is why we're all over the place. I mean, we don't know how we don't know when to listen to our perception, when to listen to our intuition, when to listen to our gut feelings. Sometimes we second guess ourselves. And when we second guess ourselves, you have to remember that's not coming from our subconscious mind. That's coming from our conscious mind. When we start second guessing, that's our conscious mind trying to say, no, don't do that. But your subconscious mind, your spiritual mind, is your deep thinking mind. This is where all your intuition's coming from. This is where all your answers, all the answers you have for your whole life, is inside you. It's inside your spiritual mind. At first, in our physical existence, we allow it to work blindly. That's what he means by this. Like, when we allow things to work blindly, this is what's happening. That, manifesting is working for you, but you're manifesting things you don't want because you don't know how to control this power. So law of attraction is working, but it's giving you things you don't want because you're focusing on things you don't want. That's why it's bringing you things you don't want. Then we are in ignorance of that condition known as the material mind. But as mind through its growth or increase of this power becomes more and more awakened, it asks, why come so much of pain, grief, and disappointment in my physical life? Why do we seem born to suffer and decay? See, this is a great question. This might be something, maybe you're asking yourself something like this, maybe not exactly, but why come so much pain or grief and disappointment in my physical life? Why am I experiencing this almost like the law of karma? It just, similar things keep on happening, but they're all kind of very similar to each other. Similar pain, similar grief, similar disappointments that constantly keep on coming in. What's happening? What's going on? That question is the first awakening cry of the spiritual mind. The first awakening cry of your subconscious mind. And an earnest question or demand for knowledge must in time be answered. The material mind is part of yourself, which has been appropriated by the body and educated by the body. So remember, your material mind, again, is your conscious mind. This is your waking mind. This is your analytical mind. This is why he says the material mind is part of yourself, which has been appropriated by the body, by the knowledge that you've gained from growing up as a kid from your parents and school teachers and mentors. And that's why he says your educated body, going through the education system. This is your material mind. This is your conscious mind. It is as if you taught a child that the wheels of a steamboat made that boat move and said nothing of the steam, which gives the real power. Bred in such ignorance, the child, should the wheel stop moving, would look no further for the cause of their stoppage than to try to find where to repair them. Very much as now, so many depend entirely on repair of the physical body to ensure its healthy, vigorous movement, never dreaming that the imperfection lies in their real motive, power, the power of the mind. So what he's talking about here is really going to the root cause. Okay, he's talking about even like with health and disease, people treat the symptom, but they don't go to the root cause of why you got that disease in the first place. Because if you go after the root cause, the disease goes away and it stays away forever. Same way if things are reoccurring in your life, if you're not manifesting what you want, or you're stuck in poverty, or you have the same negative things happen to you over and over and over and over and over, because what's happening is you're going after the symptom, but you're not really going after the root cause. And when we're talking in this discussion here, we're talking about in manifesting in general, the root cause is your mind, is the power of your mind. You have to understand how the mind works. You have to understand how your thoughts work, because your thoughts are just giving you, remember, you manifest from within out. So you're just manifesting what you're given, and what you see in your 3D world is what your deep-rooted beliefs really are. That's why he's saying you have to go to the root cause. The mind of the body, or material mind, sees, thinks, and judges entirely from the material and physical standpoint. It sees in your body all there is of you. The spiritual mind, now he's flipping it. The spiritual mind sees the body as an instrument for the mind, or real self to use in dealing with the material things. Now this is so important, even when he says this in the first sentence here. This is something you really need to walk away with. Your mind of the body, or the material mind, okay, your conscious mind, it sees, thinks, and judges entirely from the material and physical standpoint. So what he's talking about is whatever's going on in your 3D world, whatever's going on in your material world, whatever you can see, that's your material mind. That's your conscious mind. This is what your conscious mind sees. Because your conscious mind works on your five senses: see, hear, smell, taste, touch. That's your conscious mind. Okay, your conscious mind. It's you only see it. You ever hear people say, "When I see it, I'll believe it." Okay, that's coming from their conscious mind. That's coming from your material mind, because when you see it, okay, I'll believe it when I see it, is meaning that I'm looking for it in my 3D world. Whatever's real in my 3D world, what's ever real in my material world, that's where that's where your conscious mind or your material mind, that's where it gains all its experience. Or your conscious mind wants to see it before it believes anything. So your conscious mind is going to dictate what you're doing in your waking time. Then he goes on and he says, it sees your own body, all there is of you. Then he switches. Your spiritual mind, your subconscious mind, sees the body as an instrument for the mind, or real self to use in dealing with material things. The material mind sees in the death of the body an end of all there is of you. The spiritual mind sees in the death of the body only the falling off from the spirit of a worn out instrument. It knows that you exist as before, only invisible in the physical eye. The material mind sees your physical strength as coming entirely from your muscles and sinews, and not from a source without the body. It sees in such a persuasive power as you may have with a tongue or a pen, the only force you possess for dealing with people to accomplish results. The spiritual mind will know in time that your thought influences people for or against your interest. Isn't this so true? Your spiritual mind, your subconscious mind will know in time that your thought, okay, either positive or negative, influences people for or against your interest. Though their bodies are thousands of miles distant, the material mind does not regard its thought as an actual element as real as air or water. The spiritual mind knows that every one of its 1,000 daily secret thoughts are real things, acting on the minds of the persons they are sent. Now, this is so true for the spiritual mind. This is how the subconscious mind really works. This is why I'm saying when you manifest from within out. From within, what are your deep embedded beliefs? What are your deep embedded secret thoughts that you don't tell people? This information has been around. This is written sometime in the mid 1800s. Listen to this. The spiritual mind, the subconscious mind, knows that every one of its 1,000 daily secret thoughts, he's talking about that your deep-rooted beliefs, your secret thoughts are real things, acting on the minds of persons that are sent. What he's saying is your secret thoughts are manifesting to you. What you're secretly thinking over and over and over again, what you're secretly thinking redundantly, you're festering on. That's how the mind works. We fester on the same thing over and over and over and over and over. And remember, your subconscious mind, and I'll say it right here because he's starting to get into it. Remember, your spiritual mind, your subconscious mind doesn't play favorites. Okay, it doesn't mean that there's a favorite person over here and they want to bless this person, and this person over here they don't like, so they're going to put this person in poverty. Okay, that's not how your spiritual mind works. That's not how the subconscious mind works. Your subconscious mind just takes it as is. It's taking what you give it and it's giving you more of it. Okay, it doesn't play favorites. It's not a comedian. It doesn't take jokes. Okay, maybe you tell yourself, little jokes in your mind. You say things that are very serious, but you say it in a joking way, but you always make the same comment. Your subconscious mind, your spiritual mind doesn't take it as a joke. It takes it as is. Whatever you're giving it, whatever your secret thoughts are, it's giving you more of that. Okay? It might give you exactly what you're thinking, or it will give you something very, very similar. But whatever you give it, it's giving you in return. And it's giving you in return in your 3D world, in your material world. The spiritual mind knows that matter or the material is only an expression of spirit or force, that such matter is ever changing in accordance with the spirit that makes or externalizes itself in the form we call matter. And therefore, if the thought of health, strength, and recuperation is constantly held in the mind, such thought of health, strength, and rejuvenation will express itself in the body, making maturity never ceasing, vigor never ending, and the keenness of every physical sense ever increasing. This is why I just explained before he explained it. I'm trying to catch where I'm at because he writes such long sentences. Like this right here is a giant sentence. So let's read this one more time because it's so powerful. The spiritual mind knows that matter or the material is only an expression of the spirit or force. That such matter is ever changing in accordance with the spirit that makes or externalizes self in the form we call matter. And therefore, if the thought, remember, listen to this. If you have thoughts of health, strength, and recuperation, and it's constantly held in the mind, what he means by this is you're festering on this. If you constantly have thoughts of health, strength, and recuperation, and you're constantly thinking about this stuff over and over and over and over, such thoughts of health, strength, and rejuvenation has to come to you. Okay, these are laws of the universe. If you think positive, positive has to come to you. So this is what he's saying. This is just a basic law of the universe. If you're constantly thinking health, strength, and recuperation of your body, these are all the thoughts you have. This is your dominant thoughts. Well, health, strength, and recuperation has to come to you. It has to by law. That's all he's saying here. This is your subconscious mind, your spiritual mind. This is how your subconscious mind works. It's just giving you whatever you're dominantly thinking about. Now he switches. Now he goes back to the material mind or conscious mind. The material mind thinks matter of that which is known by our physical senses. Listen to this. I just said this a few minutes ago. Remember, our material mind, our conscious mind works by our physical senses. What are our physical senses? It's see, hear, smell, taste, touch. If we can't see it, we don't believe it. If we can't touch it, we don't believe it. We can't smell, we have unique smells and we don't believe it. So our material mind, our conscious mind only works by our five senses. It doesn't work by our higher faculties. What are our higher faculties? Our higher faculties come from our subconscious mind. That's perception. That's our intuition. That's our gut feelings. Okay? Our material mind doesn't work by gut feeling. Our material mind doesn't work by intuition. It works by our five senses. So I'll say this one more time. Our material mind thinks matter of that which is known by our physical senses, see, hear, smell, taste, touch, to be the largest part of what exists. The spiritual mind regards matter as the coarser and cruder expression of the spirit and the smallest part of what really exists. The material mind is made sad at the contemplation of decay. The spiritual mind attaches little importance to decay, knowing in such decay that spirit or the moving force in all things is simply taking the dead body or the rotten tree to pieces, and that it will build them up again as before, temporarily into some other new physical form of life and beauty. The mind of the body thinks that its physical senses of seeing and hearing and feeling constitute all the senses you possess. The higher mind or body of the spirit knows that it possesses other senses akin to those of physical sight and hearing, but more powerful and far-reaching. Isn't this so true? Now, he's saying exactly what I said, okay, how I explained it, but he's just explaining it differently. He's saying the mind of the body, what's the mind of the body? Well, the mind of the body is your material mind or conscious mind. The mind of the body thinks that its physical senses of seeing, hearing, and feeling constitute all the senses you possess. It constitutes all the power you possess. All the power you possess is only by your five senses. This is what he's saying. But then he says, but the higher mind, the subconscious mind, the spiritual mind, that's what he means by the higher mind, or mind of the spirit, knows that it possesses other senses akin to those of physical sight and hearing, but are way more powerful and far-reaching. So this is the power of the subconscious mind. The power of your spiritual mind and subconscious mind is so way more powerful than anybody can imagine. Even today in 2024, people don't really understand the great depths of our subconscious mind or spiritual mind. The mind of the body has been variously termed the material mind, the mortal mind, and the carnal mind. All these refer to the same mind, or in other words, to the part of your real self which has been educated in error by the body. Now he's using different words. Okay, he's using, now back then, remember, this is coming from the mid 1800s. So he's talking about mind and the body, which is our conscious mind. Okay, now he's giving back then what the material mind, other nicknames the material mind might have that we might not hear. We might hear a little bit today, but they're not so popular. So the mind and the body is our conscious mind. And it's been termed the material mind. So the material mind is our conscious mind. But back in the 1800s, they've also called it the mortal mind, the carnal mind. So the mortal mind and carnal mind is our conscious mind. That's all he's saying here. If you have been born and bred entirely among people who believe that the earth was flat surface and did not revolve around the sun, you would in the earlier years of your physical growth believe as they did. Exactly in such fashion do you in your earlier years absorb the thought and belief of those nearest you, who think that the body is all there is of them and judge of everything by its physical interpretation to them. This makes your material mind. So he's given an example here, like up here, I'll highlight in purple. This is an example, meaning like we're living by our material mind or conscious mind. You're living by your five senses. So what he's saying here, I'll put it in another way. Like if you were born into poverty, so as you grow up, all you see is poverty around you. Your parents are in poverty, your grandparents are in poverty, your great-great-grandparents are in poverty, all your aunts and uncles are in poverty. So everything around you see in poverty, and you see it by your five senses, your see, hear, smell, taste, touch. So that's all you know, and this is where you kind of get that this is where life is handing me. I can't get out of it because you're living by your five senses. So this is just a different interpretation. I'm just explaining it different, but this is what he means. The material mind seeing that seems to it depth, disillusion, and decay in all human organization, and ignorant of the fact that the real self or intelligence has in some seeming death only cast off a worn out envelope, thinks that decay and death is the ultimate of all humanity. For such it cannot avoid a gloom or sadness coming of such error, which now pervades so much of human life at present. One result or action from such gloom, born of hopelessness, is a reckless spirit for getting every possible gratification and pleasure, regardless of right and justice, so long as the present body lasts. This is the great mistake. All pleasure so gained cannot be lasting. It brings besides 100-fold more misery and disappointment. The spiritual mind teaches that pleasure is the great aim of existence. Listen to this. Then he goes deep here, and he explains this very unique. The spiritual mind teaches that pleasure is a great aim of existence. What does he mean by this? Our subconscious mind. Okay, now I'm going to explain it differently. Our subconscious mind, what he means by this is our spiritual mind, our subconscious mind, it attracts, it responds to emotion. That's why he's using pleasure. Your spiritual mind responds to pleasure. Okay, and that's why he's saying your spiritual mind teaches that pleasure is the great aim of existence. You having pleasure, you enjoying life. Okay, that's your great aim here. Okay, because the reason why he's saying this is your spiritual mind, a subconscious mind, is giving you exactly what you're emotional to. So if you always stay in good cheer, you always stay joyful, you always say pleasure, you're always doing what you want to do, your spiritual mind and subconscious mind is going to give you more of that. That's why he's saying here, the spiritual mind teaches that pleasure, that joy, that enjoying life is the great aim of existence. But it points out ways and means for gaining lasting happiness other than those coming of the teaching of the material mind. The spiritual mind, or mind open to higher and newer forces of life, teaches that there is a law regulating the exercise of every physical sense. When we learn and follow this law, our gratifications and possessions do not prove sources of greater pain than happiness, as they do so many. By the spiritual mind is meant a clearer mental sight of things and forces existing both in us and the universe, and of which the race for the most part has been in total ignorance. We have now but a glimpse of these forces. And even today, okay, even today in 2024, okay, now this is really coming up. I mean, I'm guessing here 150 years ago, something like that. So, and maybe even more, maybe even 175 years ago, depending upon when these essays were written. But we do know 100% they were written in the mid 1800s. Now, listen to this. We have now but a glimpse of these forces, meaning like we don't even know the full aspect of our subconscious mind. We don't even know the full aspect of the power that we really have, even today in 2024. We have now but a glimpse of these forces, those of some being relatively a little clearer than those of others. But enough has been shown to convince a few that the real and existing causes for humanity's sickness, sorrow, and disappointment have not in the past been seen at all. In other words, the race has been as children, fancying that the miller inside was turning the arms of the woodmill because some person has told them so taught there would remain in total ignorance of that wind was the motive of power. So really, in this one, he's giving a unique example. It's kind of wordy a little bit, and it's old school English, and he's given an old example. But again, he's going after the root cause. Okay, he's really saying that if you have trouble manifesting, if you have trouble having a good life, if things are not coming to you that you want, okay, for you to enjoy the pleasures of life, okay, you have to go to the root cause. Okay, stop looking at the symptoms. Because what he's saying here, your conscious mind, your material mind, looks towards the symptoms. The reason why it looks towards the symptoms is because your conscious mind only operates, listen to this, your conscious mind, your material mind only operates by your five senses. It only operates by see, hear, smell, taste, test. See, hear, smell, taste, touch. So, it's only operating by what you see, what you can feel, what you can touch, what you can smell, what you can taste. If none of these things are true, then your conscious mind, your material mind is not going to believe it. So if you're not getting what you really want, you have to go to the root cause. You have to go to the root cause of the issue. You have to go to the root cause of the issue in your life. But the root cause of you, remember this, the root cause of your issue right now isn't outside of you. It isn't in your material world. It's not in your 3D world. The root cause is within you. Remember, you manifest from within out. So it's from within you. So the root cause is within you. This illustration is not at all an overdrawn picture of the existing ignorance, which rejects the idea that thought is an element all about us as plentiful as air, and that is blindly directed by individuals and masses of individuals in the domain of the material mind or ignorance. It is turning the windmill's arms, sometimes in one direction, sometimes in another, sometimes with good and sometimes with evil results. A suit of clothes is not the body that wears such suit, yet the material mind reasons very much in this way. It knows of no such thing as clothing for the spirit, for it does not know that the body and spirit are two distinct things. Listen to this. This is so powerful. Like your material mind, your conscious mind, does not know that the body, your body, and your spiritual body are two distinct things. It reasons that the suit of clothing, the body, is all there is of the man and woman. When that man or woman tumbles to pieces through weakness, it sees only the suit of clothes so going to pieces, and all its efforts to make that man or woman stronger are put on the suit, instead of making effort to reinforce the power within which has made the suit. Remember, this is what I just said in a lot of my examples here. And he said it in a weird way, and I'll read the last sentence here one more time. And he says, in all its efforts to make that man or woman stronger are put on the suit, instead of making effort to reinforce the power within which has made the suit. Listen, he's going to the root cause again. He's explaining it weird, explaining it kind of different, but he's saying you got to go to the root cause. And the root cause is within you. The power you have is within us. Okay, all the power is within me. This is what he wants to get you to understand. Your conscious mind and material mind doesn't believe it, because your material mind, your conscious mind, only works by your five senses. But your spiritual mind, your subconscious mind, works from within. And all the power is within you. Okay, this is why he's saying you have to go to the root cause. The root cause of what's going on in your life. There are probably no two individuals precisely alike as regards the relative condition or action on them of their material and spiritual minds. With some, the spiritual seems not at all awakened. With others, it has begun to stretch and rub its eyes as a person does on physical awakening, when everything still appears vague and indistinct. Others are more fully awakened. They feel to greater or lesser extent that there are forces belonging to them before unthought of. It is with such that the struggle for mastery between the material and spiritual mind is likely to most severe, and such struggle for a time is likely to be accomplished by physical disturbance, pain, or lack of ease. The material mind is, until won over and convinced of the truths, constantly received by the spiritual mind at war and in opposition to it. The ignorant part of yourself dislikes very much to give up its long accustomed habits of thinking. It causes a struggle in any case at first to own that we have such been mistaken and give up views long held to it. Now, what does he mean by this? The material mind is, until won over and convinced of the truths, constantly received by the spiritual mind at war and in opposition to it. Isn't this so true and so true today? What he means by this is our conscious mind, our thinking mind, is at war with our subconscious mind, our spiritual mind. How can we be at war with each other? And when I read this is kind of the main example I thought, and we've all experienced this. Okay, have you ever had an intuitive thought or a gut feeling to do something, but your subconscious mind, working off your five senses, is telling you, not to do it, or it's telling you, oh, stupid, or it's telling you, oh, we can do this another day. But your subconscious mind is giving you that strong gut feeling, that strong intuition to do something, but your conscious mind is trying to talk you out of it. You know, we all experience this all the time, sometimes daily, or we experience it on regular routines. Okay, even if we want to travel, you know, we have a gut feeling to travel, a gut feeling to buy our plane ticket, a gut feeling to buy a plane ticket to go back to Thailand. But then our conscious mind steps in and says, well, no, you might not have enough money. No, you know, your subconscious mind is going by your five senses again. So that's the battle he's talking about here. In a sense, we're always battling our subconscious mind. And we're battling it because we're really battering our perception. We're really battling our intuitions, our gut feelings we're having. This is where our conscious mind is battling. We have an intuitive thought to do something, but we try to talk ourselves out of it. That's the battle he's talking about here. The material mind wants more on in the rut of life and idea, and it always has done, and thousands are now doing. Listen, this is so true. The material mind, or conscious mind, wants more on in the rut of life and idea. The rut of life, meaning if you were born in poverty, that's what your material mind knows. That's all it knows. So it wants to keep you there. Okay, your material mind, with your five senses, it wants to keep you exactly where you are. And you may be deep down, intuition, you may be deep down, you want more out of life. You want to manifest a great life. You want to manifest things. You want a better life. Most people want a better life, no matter what that is. But your material mind, your conscious mind, wants to keep you exactly where you are, because that's your comfort zone. Your comfort zone is wrapped around your five senses. This is what he's saying here. The material mind wants to more on in a rut of life, an idea, and it always has done. What you've always been doing, what your mind always have known, you've always been in poverty, you've always seen your parents in poverty, you've always seen your grandparents in poverty. So your material mind, your conscious mind, guess what? It wants to keep you in poverty. It doesn't want you to move on, because all it knows is poverty. So it wants to keep you there. It dislikes change more and more as the crust of the old thought held from year to year grows more thickly over it. That's what he's saying. Your conscious mind, your material mind, dislikes change. That's why it wants to keep you exactly where you are. It wants to live on in the house it has inhabited for years, dressed in the fashion of the past, go to business and return year in, year out as precisely the same hour. It rejects and despises after a certain age the idea of learning any new accomplishments, such as painting or music, whose greatest use is to divert the mind, rest it, and enable you to live in other departments of being. All this being part from the pleasure also given you as a mind or spirit teaches the body more and more skill and expertise in the art you pursue. Isn't this so true? We're really hitting to the meat and potatoes here. Your material mind, your conscious mind, okay, it wants to keep you exactly where you are. And it will, and that's what he's saying, it rejects and despises any new thing you try to bring into your life. It rejects and despises. Listen to this. If you were born into poverty, your conscious mind rejects and despises you wanting to be wealthy. It rejects and despises you wanting to better your life. It rejects and despises you wanting to go to college. Maybe you're the first person in your whole family that went to college. Your conscious mind will reject and despise that idea you have, because all it knows is from your five senses, and all that knows is you were born in poverty. That's all it knows. It wants to keep you there. It wants to keep you in that rut. It's just like the thing, if you were brought up or raised in a small town. And if you're raised in a small town, maybe it's a small country town, a farm town, isn't it amazing that people will feel stuck in a small town? All they know is that small town. Your conscious mind, your material mind, all it knows from this five senses is a small town. And it's so hard for people to escape that small town. Because remember, your conscious mind wants to keep you exactly where you are. It rejects and despises change. When you want something new, you want to move to that big city where maybe you get a better job, a better career, you experience life more. It will reject that because it wants to keep you exactly where you're comfortable. The material mind sees as a principal use of any art only a means to bring money, and not in such art a means for giving variety to life, dispelling weariness, resting that portion of the mind devoted to other business, improving health and increasing vigor of mind and body. It holds to the idea of being too old to learn. Isn't that true today? And sometimes we can hear, if you're a little bit older, sometimes we can hear our parents talk like this. I mean, when they talk like this, it's coming from their material mind. It's coming from their conscious mind. It's coming from their five senses. That's why they're saying it. It's not coming from their spiritual mind. It's not coming from their subconscious mind, because their subconscious mind still wants them to grow and develop. But their conscious mind wants to keep them stuck exactly where they are. That's why you hear people, or even older generations, like your parents or grandparents, you hear them say things like, oh, I'm too old to learn that. I'm too old to go to college. I'm too old to get a new job. I'm too old to do this. That's why you hear them say this, but they're speaking from their conscious mind. They're speaking from their material mind. This is a condition of so many persons who have arrived at or are past middle age. Just like I said, this is in the mid 1800s, and the same thing today. This is the adage, this is the habit that you hear this saying. I'm too old to do this. I'm too old to learn this. It's always they're either middle age or past middle age. They're talking like this, but them talking like this, it's coming from their conscious mind. You have to be aware of this. You have to be aware of where it's coming from. This is going to the root cause, and maybe you're doing it. Maybe you're listening to this and say, "Dude, I do this." I've said this many times. So you got to know where it's coming from. It's not coming from your spiritual mind. It's not coming from your subconscious mind, because your spiritual mind and your subconscious mind wants you to grow. Now remember, abundance is inside you. Abundance is your birthright. Heaven is within you. The spirit is inside you. Your subconscious mind knows this. Your subconscious mind knows that abundance is your birthright. The subconscious mind knows that you have all this power. But your conscious mind, your material mind, is what's talking you out of it. Because our conscious mind is governed again by your five senses, which your five senses want to keep you stuck in exactly where you are, stuck in the life that you have right now. This is the condition of so many persons who have arrived at or past middle age. They want to settle down. They accept as inevitable the idea of growing old. Their material mind, their conscious mind tells them that their bodies must gradually weaken, shrink from the fullness and proportion of youth, decay, and finally die. Isn't this so true? This is sad, but it's so true today in 2024. Our material minds say this always has been and therefore always must be. They accept the idea wholly. They say quite unconsciously it must be. What's another way to put this? Your material mind, your conscious mind says, and it's always been, you've always been in poverty. You've always been in poverty, Margaret. So therefore it always must be. Your parents are in poverty, your grandparents are in poverty. So it must be you are in poverty. You cannot escape it. You must accept it. That's what it's saying here. The material mind says this always has been and therefore always must be. They accept the idea wholly. They say quite unconsciously it must be. To say a thing must be is the very power that makes it. Listen to this. This is manifesting 101 here. This is your subconscious mind. To say a thing must be is the very power that makes it. Once you say this must be, this must happen, this is how it is, I am rich, I am wealthy, okay? To say a thing must be is the very power that makes it. This is basic manifesting 101 here. Once you say it is, remember, your subconscious mind, spiritual mind, remember, it doesn't play favorites. Okay, remember, it doesn't play positive or negative. It just gives you what is. It gives you exactly what you give it. It gives you exactly what your internal beliefs are. It gives you exactly what your secret thoughts are. It's giving you exactly what you're giving it from within. So that's why it says to say a thing must be is the very power that makes it. When you say it, your subconscious mind is giving it to you by law. This is the laws of the universe. The material mind then sees the body ever as gradually decaying, even though it dislikes the picture and puts it out of sight as much as possible. But the idea will recur from time to time as suggested by the death of their contemporaries. And as it does, they think must, and that the state of mind indicated by the word must will inevitably bring material results in decay. The spiritual or more enlightened mind says, remember, the spiritual and more enlightened mind is your subconscious mind. It says, if you would help to drive away sickness, turn your thought as much as you can on health, strength, and vigor, and on strong, healthy, vigorous material things such as moving clouds, fresh breezes, the cascade, the ocean surge, on woodland scenes and growing healthy trees, on birds full of life and motion. For in so doing, you turn yourself a real current or this healthy life-giving thought, which is suggested and brought you by the thought of such vigorous, strong material objects. Now he worded it different, but this is what he says. This is how the subconscious mind works. Your spiritual enlightened mind, your subconscious mind says, if you want to drive away sickness, if you want to drive away poverty, then turn every thought on health, strength, and vigor, strong, healthy, and positive thoughts. Always pull out the good. And as you focus on this, and this is your dominant thoughts, good, health, strength, vigor, vigorous things has to come to you. This is what he's saying. This is how the subconscious mind works. So your subconscious mind works. Remember, the laws of the universe, there's always an opposite to the law. If there's an up, there has to be a down. There's a hot, there has to be a cold. There's a positive, there has to be a negative. If there's positive thought, well, there has to be negative thought. This is why universal laws don't play favorites. This is why the subconscious mind don't play favorites. It's because what he's saying here, as best as you can in your 3D world, as best as you can to think positive and positive thoughts and good thoughts, thoughts of health and strength and vigor, thoughts of being strong and healthy and vigorous. Okay, when you have dominant thoughts like this, the law of the universe has to bring you more of this. It has to. That's law. But the opposite works as well. If the opposite works on your negative thoughts, if you always think is, I was born in poverty, that's what it is, that's what it has to be. If you always have dominant thoughts like this, you have dominant thoughts of sickness and unhealthy, I'm weak. Well, the laws of the universe works the same. It brings you more of that. So this is what I mean. It doesn't play favorites. You can't manipulate universal laws. You can't manipulate them to work for you. You have to go within yourself and you have to change your mind. You have to change your thinking. You have to change your deep-rooted beliefs. This is why we're going through this. And above all, try to rely and trust that supreme power. Remember, supreme power is within you, which formed all these things and far more, and which is the endless and inexhaustible part of your higher self or spiritual mind. And as a faith increases in this power, so will your own power ever increase. I read that one more time, so I felt like I stumbled over my words. Above all, try to rely and trust that supreme power which formed all things and far more, and which is the endless and inexhaustible part of your higher self or spiritual mind. And as your faith increases in this power, so will your own power ever increase. I love this. Nonsense, says the ultra-material mind. When you start thinking this way, okay, nonsense says your conscious mind. But you remember, your conscious mind works by your five senses. Smell, your five senses are see, hear, smell, taste, touch. It says nonsense. Your material mind says nonsense. You start thinking in this way, this is where the battle goes on. It says nonsense, says the material mind. If my body is sick, I must have something done to cure that body with things I can see and feel. And that is the only thing to be done. As for thinking, it makes no difference what I think, sick or well. So that's how your conscious mind works. It doesn't matter what I'm thinking. Okay? It doesn't, if I'm thinking positive or negative, it doesn't matter. Okay, this is where your material mind steps in and says, if my body's sick, my body must be sick. Nothing's going to change it. I have to go to the doctor and cure it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I'm making my own self sick through unhealthy thoughts. That's how your conscious mind works. At present, in such a case, a mind whose sense of these truths, new to it, has just commenced to be awakened will, in many cases, allow itself to be for a time overpowered and ridiculed out of such an idea by its own material mind or uneducated part of itself. And in this, it is very likely to be assisted by the other material minds who have not woke up at all to these truths and who are temporarily all the stronger through the positiveness of ignorance. These are as people who cannot see as far ahead as many may with a telescope, and who may be perfectly honest in their disbelief regarding what the person with the telescope does see. Though such people do not speak a word or argue against the belief of the partly awakened mind, still their thought acts on such a mind as a bar or blind to these glimpses of truth. But when the spiritual mind has once commenced to awaken, nothing can stop its further awakening, though the material may for a time retard it. Isn't this so true? And I'll read it one more time. But when your spiritual mind, when your subconscious mind has commenced to awaken, you're paying attention. You're kind of digging deep. You're trying to figure out what's going on. You're trying to figure out why are just negative things constantly coming to me. What's going on? Once you start to awaken your spiritual mind, it says nothing can stop it from further awakening. Like once you awaken it, the growth has to happen to you. Nothing can stop it. Your real self may not at times be where the body is, says the spiritual mind. It is where your mind is, in the store, the office, the workshop, or with some person to whom you are strongly attached. And all these All these may be in towns or cities far from one your own body resides in. Your real self moves with inconceivable rapid as your thought moves. Nonsense, says the material mind. I myself am wherever my body is and nowhere else. Now he's kind of going deep here, meaning that now he's really going inside our imagination. This is how our imagination works. Is if we're living in poverty, just like Neville Goddard teaches, you set an intention, you go inside your imagination, you produce this imaginal scene around your intention about what you want. Maybe you want a dream house. So you imagine inside your imagination, you already have your dream house. You know what it exactly look like. You know how big it is. You're walking around inside your dream house. Maybe you have a swimming pool. You're going swimming in your dream house. And so that's what it means. Your mind is going someplace else, okay, inside your imagination. And what you can imagine, you can have. That's the teaching of Neville Goddard, is that if you can imagine it, you can have it. If you can see it in your imagination, it can be visible in your 3D world. But what he's saying here is that your conscious mind, your material mind, will say nonsense. It's not true. It will say, I myself am, your conscious mind is am wherever my body is and nowhere else. You know, wherever I am at right now, what's ever going on right now in my 3D world, my material world, this is where my conscious mind is. But your subconscious mind has all the power. So your subconscious mind says, you know, dream, go inside your imagination, because what you can picture inside your imagination, you can have. Okay, he's explaining it in a different way, because remember, it's in the 1800s. He's explaining it kind of for his time, people would understand it, but nowadays in 2024, it's a little bit harder to understand. Many a thought or idea that you reject as visionary or as a whim or fancy comes of the prompting of your spiritual mind. It is your material mind that rejects it. That's so deep. Remember, your material mind, your conscious mind is the one that rejects. Okay, your subconscious mind just gives you whatever you're thinking about. It gives you whatever you bring emotion to. It gives you your dominant thoughts. That's how your subconscious mind works. That's why I said your subconscious mind, you manifest from within out. Your subconscious mind gives you whatever your deep-rooted beliefs are. It gives you whatever you're constantly thinking about, your dominant thoughts. Your dominant thoughts and your dominant beliefs, that's what's coming, manifesting into your 3D world. But your conscious mind, your conscious mind, your material mind that works off the five senses can reject it. That's the only mind that we reject. If you think positive, it can reject it. If you sit there and tell yourself, "Oh, I want my dream house," your material mind can reject it. It says, "Oh, you can't have your dream house. You can't have your dream car. It's not going to happen." So your conscious mind, material mind, can reject things, because this is your waking mind. It will reject. If you have an intuition to do something, it will reject it. It will tell you not to do it. Do it another day. No, that's stupid. Okay, that's your material mind. I'll read this one more time, because this is just a short little sentence here. Many a thought or idea that you reject as visionary or as a whim or fancy comes of a prompting of your spiritual mind. It is your material mind that rejects it. Remember, it's your material mind that rejects it. Your subconscious mind just gives you as is. It gives you what you want. It gives you what you're thinking about. It gives you what you bring in emotion to. No such idea comes, but there is a truth in it. But that truth we may not be able to carry out to a relative perfection immediately. 200 years ago, some mind may have seen the use of steam as a mode of power, but that mode of power could not then be carried out as it is today. A certain previous growth was necessary, a growth and improvement in the manufacture of iron, in the construction of roads, and in the needs of the people. But the idea was a truth held by various minds. It has brought steam as a mode of power to its present relative perfection. It has struggled against and overcome every argument and obstacle placed in its way by dull, material, and plodding minds. When you entertain any idea and say to yourself, in substance, while such a thing may be, though I cannot now see it, you may remove a great barrier to the carrying out and realization of yourself of a new and strange possibility in store for you. This is how manifesting really works right here. This is how your subconscious mind works. Listen to what he's saying very closely. When you entertain any idea, okay, when we entertain any idea, when we entertain any thought, and when you say it to yourself with substance, what he's meaning, you're saying it to yourself with emotion, you really believe it. So you're entertaining an idea, and you really believe, and you're saying to yourself, internally, you're saying, and you have emotion to it, you really believe what you're saying. While such a thing may be, though I cannot now see it, you remove a great barrier to the carrying out and realization of yourself of new things and strange possibilities in store for you. What he's saying is, if you say to yourself, I don't believe it, this isn't going to come true, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Okay, you have such great belief around it when you say, I can't have this, I can't have my dream house, this isn't going to happen. That's what's going to come true for you. Okay, you're getting exactly what your deep-rooted beliefs are. Okay, if someone says, I don't believe in manifesting, I don't believe that, well, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They're getting exactly what they believe. Their conscious mind, their material mind, will show them evidence in their 3D world that it's not true. The spiritual mind today sees belonging to itself a power of accomplishing any and all results in the physical world, greater than the masses dream of. It sees that as regards life possibilities, we still in dense ignorance. It sees, however, a few things, namely perfect health, freedom from decay, weakness, the death of the body, power of transit, travel, and observation, independent of the body, the methods for obtaining all needful and desirable material things through the action and working of the silent mind or thought, either singly or in cooperation with others. The condition of the mind to be desired is the entire dominancy of the spiritual mind. But this does not imply dominancy or control in any sense, or tyranny, mastership of the material mind by the spiritual mind. It does not imply that the material mind will be swept away so far as its stubborn resistance and opposition to the promptings of the spiritual are concerned. It implies that the body will become the willing servant, or rather assistant, of the spiritual. It implies that the material mind would not endeavor to act itself up as a superior when it is only inferior. It implies that the state which the body will gladly lend its cooperation to all the desires of the spiritual mind. This is kind of very, very unique when you bring this up. In the last part of this paragraph here, because he's saying that, there's really a battle going on between the conscious mind and subconscious mind. But it doesn't mean your subconscious mind will grow to great power, that your conscious mind will entirely go away. Okay, that's what he's saying. It's not true. That's why he's saying right now, kind of what's happening in our lives is that our conscious mind is way more in control than our subconscious mind. What he's saying, it should be flip-flopped. Okay, just because your conscious mind is more in control, your subconscious mind is still there. Okay, if your subconscious mind is more in control, well, your conscious mind is still there. It doesn't totally go away. That's what he's saying here. So this is what he's saying when he says it applies that the body will become the willing servant, or rather the assistant of the spirit. It implies that the material mind will not endeavor to act itself as a superior when it is only inferior. So he's saying the material mind, right now the material mind is superior in your life. Your conscious mind is superior in your life. Your conscious mind is more dominant, but in retrospect, it should be flip-flopped. Okay, your subconscious mind should be dominant, because this is where all your higher faculties come from. This is where your perception comes from. This is where your intuition, your gut feelings come from. But your conscious mind is always going to be there, but it's going to be inferior. Okay, that's what he's saying. But right now, it's still there, but we're working in opposites. We're working where our conscious mind is dominant and our subconscious mind is inferior. Then all power can be given your spirit. Then no force need to be expended in resisting the hostility of the material mind. then all such force will be used to further our undertakings, to bring us material goods, to raise us higher and higher into realms of power, peace, and happiness, to accomplish what we now would be called miracles. Neither the material mind nor the material body is to be won over and merged into the spiritual by any course of severe self-censor or self-denial, nor self-punishment and expiation of sins committed. Now, when he brings up sins, this is a great area. Now, remember, when we talk about laws of the universe, when we talk about God, in Hebrew, God means law. This is where laws of the universe came from. But God means law. And remember, sin, if sin separates you from God, if God means law, sin would actually separate you from law, meaning it separates you from the laws of the universe, meaning that you're not living in harmony with the laws of the universe. What does that mean? When you look at the basic laws of the universe, remember, laws of the universe, there's always an opposite. There's an up, there's a down, there's a hot, there's a cold, there's a positive, there's a negative. And there's positive thought versus negative thought. What that means is that if I'm living in not in harmony with the law, meaning rather than having my thoughts being dominantly positive, my thoughts are, if I'm living in inharmony, my thoughts are dominantly negative. So that's what he means by sin. That's what sin really means. That will only make you the more harsh, severe, bigoted, merciless, both to yourself and others. It is out of this perversion of the truth that have arisen such terms as crucifying the body and subjugating the lower or animal mind. It is from this perversion that have come orders and associations of men and women who, going to another extreme, seek holiness and self-denial and penance. Holiness implies wholeness or whole action of the spirit of the body, a perfect control by your spirit over a body, through knowledge and faith in our capacity to draw ever more and more from the supreme power. When you get out of patience with yourself through the aggressiveness of your material mind, of your conscious mind, through your frequent slips and falls into the besetting sins, through periods of petulance, or ill temper, or excess in any direction, you do no good, and only ill and calling or thinking from yourself hard names. You should not call yourself a vile sinner, any more than you would call any other person a vile sinner. Listen to this. And this is so true. Now he's using vile sinner. Now he's using such an old term technology. And this is something that a lot of us fall into a trap of, and we do it. We're doing it consciously, or it's a subconscious habit. But it's really a habit we've gotten into, a really bad habit we've gotten into. And he's saying that you should never call yourself a negative name. That's what a vile sinner is. You should never call yourself anything negative, any more than you will call any other person a negative name. And a lot of us do that. A lot of us, maybe an accident happens. Maybe we're cooking and we spill something on the floor, and you might say, "Oh, I always do this. This always happens to me. This negative. Oh, this is how my whole day is going to go." We're putting such a self-fulfilling prophecy over our life for that day. So that's what he's saying here, is that you should never call yourself anything negative. Okay, you should never call yourself a name. You should never call yourself a vile sinner, any more than you would call any other person that. Then he says, if you do, you put out in thought the vile sinner and make it temporarily a reality. Listen, that's what I just said. If you do this, if you constantly talk negative about yourself, you put out a thought. You put out a thought of that and you make it temporarily in your reality. It starts to become true. If in your mental vision you teach yourself that you utterly depraved and a vile sinner, you are unconsciously making that your ideal, and you will unconsciously grow up to it until the pain and evil coming of such unhealthy growth either makes you turn back or destroy your body. For out of this state of mind, which in the past has been much incalculated, comes harshness, bigotry, lack of charity for others, hard, stern, and gloomy and unhealthy views of life, and these mental conditions will surely bring physical disease. This is what he's saying. When people do this, and maybe you're in a habit of doing it, okay? Maybe you know people who do this. Every time something happens, they're calling themselves a certain name. They're saying, "Oh, this always happens to me." Stop doing it today. That's why the first step to this is awareness. Once you start becoming more aware of the thoughts you have, more aware of your internal beliefs, more aware of your secret thoughts, more aware of these habits that you're doing, and you're speaking it out loud, no matter if you're thinking it to yourself or you're speaking out loud, it's coming into your reality. And this is what you said in this long paragraph here. Okay, when you speak ill words over your life, it's coming into your reality. It's coming, and unless you stop it. When the material mind is put away, or in other words, then we become convinced of the existence of these spiritual forces, both in ourselves and outside of ourselves. And when we learn to use them rightly, for we are now and always have been using them in some way, then the use of words of Paul. Now he's taken Paul from the Bible, biblical text. Then he's using the words of Paul. Faith is swallowed up in victory, and the sting and the fear of death is removed. Life becomes then one glorious advance forward from the pleasure of today to the greater pleasure of tomorrow. And the phrase "to live" means to only enjoy. Now he ends this again. The phrase "to live" means only to enjoy. Meaning, like this is what he said kind of in the beginning of the chapter, is we should enjoy life. Meaning that our subconscious mind, our spiritual mind, it manifests, it brings to us what we bring emotion to. Okay, we constantly have a negative emotion, negative disbelief. That's what's coming into our 3D world. That's why he's saying to live is really mean to enjoy. Abundance is yours. Abundance is your birthright. The spirit is within you. Heaven is within you. So abundance is your birthright. That means enjoy it. Enjoy life, because as you enjoy life, you enjoy your hobbies. Your subconscious mind is going to bring more of that to you. That's by law. These are laws of the universe. If you focus on joy, joy has to come to you. And then I'm going to wrap it up with this. When the words of Paul says, faith is swallowed up in victory. Remember, faith, another word for faith. What's another word for faith? Faith is belief. Okay, if you really believe something's going to happen, you expect it to happen. This is what faith really means. Lots of times people throw around faith as a little word here, but faith really means belief. And if you really believe something's going to happen, you expect it to happen. That's why when the biblical text says, have faith it's going to happen. What it means, believe it's going to happen. Expect it's going to happen. That's the word of faith. That's the power of faith. When biblical text says, have faith of the size of a mustard seed and you can move mountains, meaning you can have anything you want, just having little faith, little belief, little expectation. But that's what faith really means. If you have faith, you have belief. If you really believe something, you expect it. You expect it to happen. You expect it to come to you. And as we wrap this up, is enjoy life. That's the walk away of this chapter. Have fun. Enjoy. Focus on enjoying. Focus on having fun. That's what you bring an emotion to, and that's what will eventually manifest to you. That's by law. But other than that, my friends, this wraps up chapter 1. This was a long chapter. It took a while to get through this. It's only 5.5 pages, but it's just loaded with wisdom. But make sure you comment below. If you have questions on this, comment below. I would love to know where you're at, if you're understanding this material, or you have a new way of explaining it. But remember, I love you guys, and I'll see you in chapter 2.